U.S. Marine snipers couldn't hit the target until a single DAD veteran took the shot. The sun burned low over the Arizona desert, casting long shadows across the training field where a group of young U.S. Marine snipers were gathered, their brows furrowed in frustration. For 3 days straight, not one of them had been able to hit the steel target set up nearly 2 miles away. The wind was unpredictable, the air thin, and the pressure high. This was no ordinary exercise. A general himself had come to watch. A few yards away, a quiet man stood near the fence, his dusty boots planted in the sand, his hands buried in his worn jacket pockets. His name was Jack Turner, a single dad and a veteran, one who had walked away from the battlefield years ago to raise his little boy, Ethan, after losing his wife to cancer. He wasn't supposed to be there that day. He was just a janitor at the base now, cleaning the same floors where he once marched as a soldier. But fate has a strange way of putting people exactly where they're needed. Jack had always kept to himself, humble and quiet. The younger Marines respected him but didn't really know his story. They'd see him mop the halls, nod politely, maybe crack a small joke. None of them knew that this man, this janitor, once held the record for the longest confirmed sniper shot in his division. But that life, Jack believed, was over. Until that day. The general's voice boomed across the range. 2 miles, gentlemen, we need precision. The wind won't always be your excuse. Private Cole adjusted his scope, sweat dripping down his temple. He exhaled slowly, squeezed the trigger, miss. The bullet whistled into the sand, far from the mark. The general sighed heavily. Another try. Another miss. Jack had been sweeping near the shed, pretending not to listen, but each shot made his heart beat a little faster. He knew exactly what was wrong. He could see it from the way the rifles were held, the way their scopes shimmered under the sun, and how the wind curved the heat waves in the air. He could feel it, deep in his bones. When the general finally called for a break, frustration thick in the air, Jack walked forward quietly. "Sir," he said, hesitating. "If you don't mind me saying, you're fighting the wrong wind. It's drifting northwest, not east. You're compensating the wrong way." The Marines exchanged looks. A janitor giving advice to trained snipers. The general raised an eyebrow. "And how would you know that, Mr. Turner?" Jack shrugged modestly. "Just seen a lot of deserts in my day, sir." The general studied him for a long moment. Then, with a faint smirk, he said, "You think you can do better, Turner?" Jack looked toward the distant target, shimmering in the heat haze. He hadn't fired a rifle in nearly 10 years. His hands weren't as steady, his eyes not as sharp. But there was something in that moment, maybe pride, maybe memory, that pushed him forward. "Sir," he said quietly, "if you'll allow me one shot." Word spread fast. The Marines gathered behind him, whispering. Some laughed under their breath. The janitor was going to try. But as Jack lay down on the sand, the chatter faded. He moved like a man who'd done this his whole life, calm, deliberate, every motion precise. He borrowed a rifle from one of the Marines, adjusted the bipod, and looked through the scope. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he whispered softly, almost to himself, "Breathe, feel the wind." He adjusted a few clicks on the scope, waited, and squeezed the trigger. Crack! The shot echoed across the desert. Everyone held their breath. 3 seconds. 4. Then, a distant clang. The steel target rang like a bell. Dead center. The field went silent. The general blinked, stunned. The young Marines looked at each other in disbelief. One of them shouted, "No way. He hit it." Jack simply set the rifle down and stood, brushing sand off his uniform pants. Wind shifted, he said quietly. "Just needed to listen." The general walked up to him slowly. "You're no ordinary janitor, are you?" Jack smiled faintly. "Once was. Not anymore. These days, I'm just trying to be a good dad." That evening, as the sun dipped below the desert ridge, the Marines gathered around him, eager to learn. Jack showed them how to read the dust trails, how to trust their instincts instead of the numbers. He taught them that a sniper's strength isn't in his weapon, it's in his calm. Later that night, when the base grew quiet, Jack went home to his small apartment. His son Ethan ran up and hugged him. "Dad, you're on the base news," he said excitedly, holding up a phone. There was a photo of Jack standing beside the general, smiling shyly, the caption reading, "Veteran janitor saves the day." Jack chuckled softly and knelt to his son's level. "It was just one shot, buddy. Ethan looked at him seriously. Mom would have been proud. Jack's eyes softened. He hugged his son tighter. Yeah, he whispered. I think she would have. Over the next few weeks, something changed on that base. The Marines began treating Jack not as a janitor, but as a mentor. They asked for advice, learned from his calm wisdom, and even invited him to join training sessions. Jack never boasted, he simply reminded them that skill without humility meant nothing. And one morning, the general called him into his office. Turner, he said, smiling. We'd like you to come back, not as a janitor, but as a shooting instructor. We need men who teach with heart, not ego. Jack's hands trembled slightly. He thought about his son, about the long nights of struggle, the years of silence. Sir, he said finally, I'll do it. But only if I can be home for dinner every night. The general laughed. Deal. Months later, Jack stood once more on the range, not as a forgotten veteran, but as a teacher, a hero in his own quiet way. His students respected him deeply, not just for his aim, but for his heart. In the end, Jack taught them something far greater than marksmanship. He taught them that true strength lies not in the shot you take, but in the purpose behind it, in the calm between the breaths, and the reason you keep fighting when life tries to break you. So, if you were watching this story unfold right now, maybe ask yourself, what's your one shot? The one moment where you choose to rise again. Because sometimes, the world just needs you to pick up that rifle, or broom, and take aim at life one more time.